That was the moment when it was announced that President Trump was at the Bama versus Georgia game. Just an absolute eruption of cheers. The stadium seats 100,000 people. Just a massively positive reception. The reason I wanted to make this video is because someone on TikTok edited that footage. They put in boos instead of cheers, and now this video is going viral on TikTok, and they're claiming that Trump was booed at the Bama game. This is what's going viral on TikTok right now. You can hear, they do have some cheers, but they've put in some boos, a lot of boos, and it just doesn't even match the visuals here. You can see, people waving their pom-poms. You can see people clapping in the air. You don't hear any of those claps. You can see people visually cheering, yet you hear boos. It just doesn't make any sense. This is misinformation, and yet it's able to stand on TikTok. For whatever reason, TikTok hasn't taken it down, and it is going viral as of the making of this video. It has several hundred thousand views. So I'm going to show you different angles of Trump at the Bama versus Georgia game, just to show you how well received he was. This is another angle from within the stadium, showing the moment Trump was announced on screen, and you will hear the roar of approval. And you'll notice the audio actually matched what you were seeing visually, right? Those cheers definitely seem natural to just the visuals that we were seeing. And here's another angle, and what I want you to notice in this angle is you can see the bulletproof glass. Trump, of course, was in one of the upper boxes, but they still put in bulletproof glass to ensure that he was protected. Just a lot of cheers, and you can tell, just the excitement that is in that stadium for the people, who have a chance to glimpse a living president. Really exciting. Not many people get that opportunity, in their lifetimes. So I know a lot of people out there are going to say, well, Daniel, this was a Bama game. Of course, Alabama is voting for Trump. Of course, the stadium is going to roar for him. Well, that's not always the case as far as politician receptions at games. And I'm going to show you some footage, of Tim Walz. He also went to a game yesterday in Michigan. It was Michigan versus Minnesota. So, there should have been some Minnesota fans there, and Michigan supposedly is a swing state. And supposedly, if we're going to believe the polls, it's leaning towards Kamala Harris, and yet he was booed at the Michigan game. Just a totally different reception. And by the way, the Harris campaign has been hiding Kamala Harris from, she's sending Tim Walz to go to the football games instead of her herself. You know what I mean? So why are they hiding her? Is it because they know she would get a worse reception? I'm going to show you some polling that came from Atlas Intel later in this video. They are one of my favorite polling outlets, and they have some, great numbers for President Trump. So this was the actual moment when Trump arrived at the stadium, and you can see even when he arrived, there were just cheers for him. He didn't even have to be on the giant Jumbotron for people to get excited. I mean, that looks like a hero's welcome. I mean, the cheers are just totally sustained. There's not a break in the excitement, the adrenaline, the momentum. It's just a roar of approval, Compare that to whenever Kamala Harris and Tim Walz go out on the campaign trail. Sometimes they literally please clap. Well, Trump, during this visit, he went to the concession stand. He actually bought food and started passing out popcorn and snacks to people in attendance. And I thought this was a great moment. I'm happy it was caught on camera. So obviously the crowd is really excited. You can hear people screaming. And then here you'll see Trump going to the concessions. He and his team bought popcorn, and they started passing them out, tossing them to the fans. And you'll see he starts going back and forth and, giving everyone popcorn, which was really, really nice. Now, during this campaign cycle, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have made staged visits to gas stations, to restaurants, to spice shops, to delis. And we found out that the people they have around them are oftentimes hired actors and actresses. A lot of these are, staged so they can also use the footage for commercials or for their social media reels. Whereas, stuff like this with Trump is just completely organic. You can tell these are actual fans who are there. He doesn't have to do multiple takes of him passing out snacks. It's just, hey, I'm going to buy snacks and pass them out to people enjoying the game. Obviously, there you can see a lot of people really happy to meet Trump. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Tim Walz did go to the Michigan-Minnesota game, and even as he pulled up, he was booed. Not even when he was in the stadium, just as his motorcade was pulling up, people started booing. So you can see all the flashing lights for the motorcade, all the cops, Secret Service. Yeah, they are very upset. Of course, we shouldn't be surprised because even CNN is giving Scott Jennings more airtime to rag on Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. This is actually what Scott Jennings said recently on CNN. I think this was said, if not this morning, then late last night.
Well, first of all, I don't find them to be consequential. Second of all, Walz is a buffoon. I'm sorry. This guy, he's the only school teacher in America who brags that none of his students can get into an Ivy League school. He's had one consequential press interaction with our Dana Bash, who asked him about the fabrications in his own resume, and his answer was essentially, me no understand words good. I mean, he's a buffoon. He's on a free ride for running under Harris. He gets very little press. They don't let him talk to the press for a reason. I want one thing out of this debate. I want J.D. Vance to go out there and get under his skin. He has legendary hot, short temper. A lot of governors do, but apparently he does. I want J.D. Vance to go out there and have him explain why he is denigrating J.D. Vance's story. Small town America ends up making something better out of his life, which is something we should want for every kid.
I am really excited for the vice presidential debate this Tuesday. That is going to be epic. But again, the reason I bring up Tim Walz is I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Daniel, Trump at Bama, that's no surprise that he was given a hero's welcome. Well, again, Michigan, Minnesota, should be a lot of Minnesota fans there, which is the state Tim Walz is the governor of, and Michigan supposedly being a swing state in favor of Kamala Harris. It should have been 50-50, but instead all he got were boos. Well, when he was in Michigan, obviously he was there really for a photo op, if we're being honest. And this was before the game, and this looks like a great photo, right? I mean, minus all the empty seats behind him. Looks happy, surrounded by people, everyday America, until you see the behind-the-scenes footage of that photo, and you realize that all the people there were cheering for Trump. Ouch.
Yeah, Trump 2024, baby!
Yeah, so that great photo, has a great story behind it. Now, like I referenced, they're not really letting Kamala Harris go out to any unscripted events, right? Everything is tightly choreographed. They're vetting the people she's around. They're not really letting her go out in public. Well, I found this footage, one of the rare occasions she was allowed in public, from 2021. So this is in deep blue New York City. And I have to give you a warning, there is some language here. So if you have little ones watching, excuse the next, 30 seconds. You might want to fast forward, mute. But this was a crowd in deep blue New York City greeting Kamala Harris outside of Carnegie Hall. Again, Deep Blue New York City 2021, not even an election year. So if that is happening in one of the bluest areas of the country in a non-election year, I can only imagine what it would be like if they let Kamala Harris out to a football game right now. Well, you know, Bama, UGA, one of the hottest rivalries in all of football. And they all were able to agree on one thing. Here is a clip of UGA fans, Georgia fans, outside of the stadium before the Bama game.
Today I will be announcing my pick.
What's your name?
My name is Graham from Atlanta, Georgia. After a long, carefully plotted out decision, I'm going to have to go with Team Trump!
So, huge rivalry, and yet they can agree on one thing, which is what football is all about. So, my favorite pollsters, Atlas Intel, they are one of the most actually, they were the most accurate pollster in 2020, even more so than Rasmussen, Trafalgar. They got the national vote spot on, and then on the statewide level, their average error was the smallest. They were the closest. Even closer than Trafalgar. Atlas Intel only missed by 2.2 points, and then Trafalgar was off by like 2.6. So, you know, they were still better than a lot of these mainstream polls, but you can see Atlas Intel, really great track record. Well, their poll that they released late last night, very interesting. So, North Carolina, they have Kamala Harris ahead. I believe in North Carolina, these are reverse coattails. There's obviously the controversy because of the CNN report with Mark Robinson in North Carolina. So I think there are reverse coattails there that appear, if we believe this poll, to be hurting Trump. But in Georgia, Trump ahead 0.6. In Arizona, Trump ahead 1.2. In Wisconsin, Trump ahead 1.5. In Michigan, Trump ahead 3.4. In Pennsylvania, Trump ahead 2.9. Some of those, you know, well outside of the poll's margin of error. So if we apply that to the Electoral College map, what does that mean? It is a unique map that we haven't seen before. Trump-Vance 290. Again, the magic number to win the White House, to win the presidency, is 270. So, you know, they're over by 20 electoral votes, which is great news. Harris-Walz at 248. Notably blue is North Carolina. Now, here is what is really interesting. When Atlas Intel revealed yesterday's poll, they also announced that for the first time this election cycle, and for the first time, I believe, in multiple years, they announced polling into Virginia and Minnesota. Now, in this map, Virginia and Minnesota are both blue, but there have been whispers, you know, especially about Virginia. Could Virginia surprise everyone? Could Virginia turn red this year? And if Virginia did turn red, then we would be looking at an electoral landslide for Trump. And then Minnesota, actually, Harris is polling worse than Biden was, and her polling numbers there actually got worse ever since she tapped Tim Walz, who's the governor there, as her running mate. I looked back at 2020, and I could not find, someone feel free to fact check me, I could not find a single Atlas Intel poll from 2020 throughout the entire election cycle for both Virginia and Minnesota, because those states were considered to be safe for Democrats. And then, as well as 2016, I don't think they did polls in either of those states either. So it's interesting to me that after they released this brand new poll showing, you know, Trump pretty much outside the margin of error in Michigan, outside of the margin of error in Pennsylvania, you know, if he wins Pennsylvania, he wins the race. And so for them to announce, hey, we're going to put resources into Virginia and Minnesota, to me, that suggests that there is something going on the ground there, right? Or else they wouldn't do that, especially when their track record shows that they haven't invested resources in those states before. Now, I know a lot of my viewers don't like the polls. They don't put a lot of stock into them, and I understand they are just snapshots in time, and of course, different pollsters have different methodologies. But I do still think there's value for polls, and obviously the campaigns think there's value for polls. And if you don't believe me, the reason they look at the polls are, you know, for example, to see where they should be spending time and resources, right? Where should the candidates go to campaign in person? Where should they rally? Where should they do retail politics? Where should they run TV ads? And so I think in addition to the public polls, we'll want to pay attention to any of the internal numbers that leak. And then we'll also want to pay attention to where the candidates are spending time on the ground. And it's really telling that, New Hampshire, for example, Kamala Harris is all of a sudden, doing campaign stops in New Hampshire. Why? Very interesting. As always, this is my analysis commentary. This is what's going on from my vantage point, and I would love to hear from you. What do you think about Trump's reception at the Bama game, as well as the boos for Tim Walz in Michigan? And also, do you have any thoughts on this Atlas Intel poll? Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask, but it really does help me in the algorithm to reach more viewers like you. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.